It's not a wheelchair ramp or a handicap ramp, it's an ADA compliant curb ramp. I have been a transportation technician working alongside the NCDOT for the past 8 years. In that time, I have been the project inspector tasked with representing the department on 3 contracts installing over 400 ADA compliant curb ramps from Elon to UNC and everywhere in between. The Americans with Disability Act, or ADA, was passed into law in 1990, and the addendum added in 1991 set the standard for curb ramps. Although there are many standard ramps that have been approved for use by the federal government and NCDOT, whether Type 1 or Type 3 ADA compliance boils down to 4 main factors. A minimum width, the slope of the ramp and its pieces, the landing pad, and the use of a detectable warning surface. Today, I will be giving you a brief history of the Americans with Disability Act and giving you an in-depth look at what is needed to make a ramp ADA compliant. The brief, and I mean brief, history of the Americans with Disability Act regarding curb ramps. The Americans with Disability Act of 1990 was passed into law by George H.W. Bush. According to the ADA, it is U.S. legislation that provides civil rights protections to individuals with physical and mental disabilities and guarantees them equal opportunity in public accommodations, employment, transportation, state and local government services, and telecommunications. The addendum of 1991 sets guidelines for accessibility to places of public accommodations and commercial facilities by individuals with disabilities. To be ADA compliant, the ramp must meet the minimum width requirement. The minimum width of a curb ramp is 4 foot across. This width is so that someone in a wheelchair or using a walker has plenty of space to maneuver. To be ADA compliant, the ramp and all its pieces must meet all slope requirements. The running slope is the slope from top to bottom, so top to bottom. This running slope cannot exceed a maximum of 12 to 1 or 8.33. This slope can only run at the maximum slope for 15 foot before being benched off to provide rest, and then the slope can be resumed. The cross slope and transitional slope are similar in nature and have the same requirements but are different things. The cross slope refers to the pitch of the sidewalk as you approach the ramp, as well as the pitch of the ramp itself. So your cross slopes are here. The transitional slope refers to the pitch of the ramp as you transition from the ramp itself to the roadway and vice versa. So this is your transitional slope. These slopes are to be no more than 2% from zero so that the ramp is not leaning too far one way or the other. To be ADA compliant, a curb ramp must have a level landing pad. The landing pad is the area at the top or bottom of the ramp depending on the ramp type. So this is your landing pad in this instance. The pad is required to be a minimum of 4 foot by 4 foot. The slope of the pad must be no more than 2% from zero in any direction. The pad size is determined by the width of the detectable warnings being used and the style of ramp. To be ADA compliant, a curb ramp must have a detectable warning. Detectable warnings are raised bumps that are placed. The placement of these raised bumps is dependent on the style or type of ramp being installed. These are your detectable warning surfaces in this instance. These warnings in most cases are truncated dome mats, but could be truncated dome bricks. Mats are placed near transitions to warn the visibly impaired. These mats are to be aligned for that same reason. The detectable warnings are required to cover the entire surface of the transition, walkable surface of the transition. So from here to here is the walkable area. From site limitations to existing infrastructure, it takes a lot of work and thought to ensure ramps meet ADA compliance. The ramps must meet all 4 requirements to be considered ADA compliant. I hope you enjoyed this brief history of the ADA and now know what is needed to make a curb ramp ADA compliant.